Good afternoon. Welcome to the about 4,000th, over 4,000th meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland. We are the third oldest Rotary Club in the world, and we have been meeting continuously for over 110 years. My name is Peter Ferris, and the 300 members of this club have done me the honor of electing me to be the current president. So we welcome visiting Rotarians and guests, and if you are one, we would like for you to enter your name and your club into the chat box, or just your name and why you're visiting us, and we will we will recognize you later. The chat function is on the slide. It's that little icon with the big red arrow, and you can use that at any time. You'll also be using it for other things that we're going to do today. We are all being challenged by these times, and my wife Astrid found this pretty funny, and perhaps because it's cuts a little close to the bone. We have a tradition of reciting our vision at the beginning of each meeting, and at the end of it we say Rotary connects us all. So together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Rotary connects us all. Another tradition in our club is our thought for the day. And today I asked Mary Jiang to provide us with the thought for the day. So Mary, are you there?
Just a moment. Sorry here. Peter, can you unmute her?
I just hit unmute for Mary. Mary, are you there? Oh dear, we're having some technical issues. Yeah, there we go. Hi Mary, now we can hear you.
Okay.
We're going to do our thought for the day.
Okay, thought for the day. I wanted to let you know that the month of May is Asian Pacific American Heritage Month to celebrate the history, culture, and food of Asian Americans. During the month of May, PBS or KQED will be running an excellent 5-part documentary film about Asian Americans. I'd like to invite you to check it out. I am proud of the diversity and inclusiveness found in the San Francisco Bay Area. However, I want you to be aware of increased xenophobic acts against Asian Americans due to fear and uncertainty resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. In closing, I want you to know that it's okay for us to be not okay. Stay home, stay calm, stay connected, stay active. We're in this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Today, I have the pleasure and the honor of inducting 2 new members. And Sam Miller, you are unmuted, and you are going to introduce Janice Brickley.
Hi, everyone. It is a great honor for me to sponsor and introduce Janice Brickley. Janice is a lawyer. She went to Berkeley Law School. She had a distinguished legal career. She was a public defender in Alameda County. She's an expert on juvenile justice. So if any of your kids get in trouble, you can talk to Janice. Early in her career, she spent a year up in Alaska, and this is dear to my heart. She learned how to fly fish there, except one time she fell into a stream and was going to be swept away, but she was literally rescued by the chief judge of the Alaska Supreme Court. So that's a story you can follow up with Janice about. She's an avid bicycle rider. She and her husband have gone on bicycle trips all over the world. So again, if you want advice on where to go all over all the continents of the world bicycling, talk to Janice. So with that, I introduce Janice and I welcome her to the club.
Hi, Janice. Welcome. Say a couple of words so we can see your picture.
Oh, okay, here I am. Hi, thank you, Sam. I also want to give thanks to Jean Zajas, who, as most of you know, sadly recently passed away. You know, in addition to being a long-term Rotarian and past president, he was my next door neighbor. And when I retired last year, I was looking for community service opportunities in Oakland. And he was the first person I thought to ask, you know, what's out there? What can I get involved in? And of course, he had 2 words for me: Oakland Rotary. And from there, in Gene's very calm but persuasive manner, he invited me to different events, and I learned more about the volunteer opportunities and met some warm and welcoming people, and he had me hooked. So thank you,
Great.
Gene.
Yeah, we miss Gene terribly, and he was a good recruiter for the club.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Riza Hernandez, hi. Look at that big smile.
Hello, President Peter. It is my honor to induct Vivian Maynor to the Oakland Rotary Club. Vivian moved to Oakland in 2018, so a couple years ago, where I met her at one of the chamber events, and she was hungry to learn more about Oakland and give back and be part of the community. She is a licensed real estate agent with Keller Williams. And a fun fact, actually, she served for 24 years in the American military, in the Navy. So had multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. So if you come across Vivian, please thank her for her service. And Vivian, would you like to say a few words?
Hello all. Hi. I'm not as exciting as Janice, but I'm excited to be here. I thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Anchors away, Vivian. We're so happy to have you join. So Janice and Vivian, we are happy that you have chosen to join us. And please know that your family and friends are always welcome to join us for lunch when we get back to our meetings and to participate in our projects and events. By accepting membership, you have adopted our vision. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. You also agree today to conduct your affairs according to Rotary's traditional 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Vivian and Janice, you'll be receiving your Rotary Pin in the mail soon, and I hope that you will wear it with pride and find pleasure and fulfillment in participating in our activities by contributing to the Rotary Foundation and the Oakland Rotary Endowment. It is my privilege and honor to induct you as members of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, Seth.
Yes.
Seth Butner. I'd like, let's see, you're going to have my job in no time flat.
It'll be soon. You can hang on to it for a little while longer, but I'll be there soon. Actually, I'm glad to be here today, Peter, to reintroduce one of our longtime members and to give you a little bit about our background, and maybe you can guess who I'm talking about. COVID-19 is not the first time this Rotarian has had to shelter in place. She was hit by a car at 14 years of age, breaking her leg in 6 places and collarbone, and then contracting chickenpox once she came home, and she spent the remainder of her 8th grade year at home, school, and in a wheelchair. So she's kind of used to these situations that we're having right now. She's a product of San Francisco Public Schools, graduated from Lowell High School and San Francisco State. And while a good student, she wasn't always on the right track. At 13 years old, she had a group of friends stole a truck in the mission. Well, actually, they popped it into neutral and pushed it around the corner. Well, that's while one or the other one steered it. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but that shows some of the ingenuity and entrepreneurship that she had, because she also later became interested in junior achievement as a sophomore in high school. And her first company she worked for was called the Happy Hanger Over. They were seller of gold anodized aluminum hangers. She was a top salesperson in that group. She, more importantly, to volunteers from IBM, exposure to the other world outside of mission, and she completed 2 stints with them in accounting and computer sales. This experience inspired her to join Rotary and work with Art Heck. Many of you remember Art Heck. Recruit members from Project Hope and the Boys and Girls Club. She was a member of, let's see, she was accounting. She was first fired from her first public accounting job, but she did quite well then there after that. Her greatest achievement in life is raising her 2 great kids as a single mom that she was incredibly proud of. They're now 32 and 35 years old. Best part is the kids is grandkids, which she had 2 grandsons, ages 11 and almost 14. So she did her work there. She is thankful, most thankful to Rotary for giving her the opportunity to give back the blessings she received and for encouraging her to find the love of her life, her Rotary and Al Marcus. Unfortunately, she didn't have Al long, but he died a few years after that and passed away in 2005. But she joined Rotary in 1996, and her sponsor was Iris Brody Lopez, recruited her to involve her in Project Hope. Lorna, I guess you guys by now, it's Lorna. Lorna served as president of Rotary from 2011 to 2012. Harking back to the days of the first company she worked for, she's proud of the lasting tradition she began at Rotary called Cocktails with the President. Her favorite toast is to good friends, good food, good wine, good times, salute. Salute to Lorna. And Lorna, I would like for her to say a few words, also is our incoming new treasurer for the new year. As we were talking earlier, Janice mentioned our longtime treasurer, Jean Zaha passed away recently, and Lorna has graciously agreed to fulfill that big position. Lorna, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate your reintroduction and your ask of to become the new treasurer. I'm looking forward to serving Rotary in another role. Big shoes to fill in terms of following Jean Zahas, and I hope to do him to honor his memory and taking on this role. And I just want to thank my fellow Rotarians for truly all the support and friendship that I've experienced in the club over the years.
Well, I, for one, would like to thank you, and I'd like to ring the bell to honor Lorna as becoming the incoming treasurer. And,
well, thank you. I'd like to ring the bell for you as our incoming president.
Thank you.
And I would like to ring the bell in honor of Lorna. Lorna, thank you so much for everything you've done and for everything that you are about to do. So for those of you who are visiting our club, a bell ring is a $100 donation to the Oakland Rotary Endowment, which we'll be talking about a bit more later. And if you would like to honor Lorna, or anything for that matter, please feel free to just write into the chat box that you'd like to ring the bell, and we will take care of invoicing you, and we'll thank you very, very much. Speaking of entering stuff into chat, Ed Jellin, a guy I love calling on at every meeting. Ed, are you there?
I am there. We're here.
Yay!
How you doing, President Peter?
I am doing fine. It's nice to see you, Ed. Do you
Thank
have
you.
some good news for us? I think you do.
I do have some good news. First, I'd like to welcome Janice and Vivian to our club. Great to have you. And to Janice, I say go UC Law, which is my alma mater. And I'm looking for some visiting Rotarians. And Peter, I have to tell you, you're not the only club president with us today. We're honored to have with us Alex Parajan, who is president of the Glendale Sunrise Club from District 5280. So welcome, Alex. Nice of you to join us. And we also have visiting with us today, Fannie Lee. And I think, do I see anybody else? No, I think that's it, President Peter. So welcome guests and visiting Rotarian.
All right. Thank you very much, Ed. You do such a great job at this. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. So speaking also of the Oakland Rotary Endowment, sometimes we call it ORE. I try to use the full term so we all know what we're talking about and separate it from Rotary Foundation, which is the international big club. Oakland Rotary Endowment is our 501c3 charitable arm, and today we begin our fundraising efforts to try and develop the resources we need so that Sfii is going to be able to continue to do all this great work that you guys have made possible over the last year. Before I introduce Christine Watson, though, I wanted to demonstrate what the Oakland Rotary Endowment has done in the last month. As you can see from this slide, the second set of numbers, this club has donated $93,500 in the last month to local COVID-19 responses. The majority of that money has gone to nonprofits, which are providing food to the so many members of our community who are having tremendous difficulties. We also have arranged through the Kinder Prep program to be delivering books to over 600 transitional kindergarten students in their homes, delivered directly to their homes. And there were a lot of people who were involved in putting together all of these various groups and for redistributing the money that would have gone to other projects. And I'm extremely proud to be a member of this club. Additional to that 93,000, Janice and Fred and Stephen Blair all put together 9 four-year scholarships this year instead of the 6, which we usually do. And so thank you to the Cerrone Lena Committee. And finally, International Service put $27,000 into international work. That's a total of $200,500. And every single member of this club should be incredibly proud of that effort. So thank you. So Christine, let's get you unmuted. And tell us how we're going to continue to do this fantastic work. All right, Christine, are you there?
Hello, President Peter. Thank you for that intro. I just want to take a moment to say welcome, welcome, Janice. Welcome, welcome, and ahoy, Vivian. We're excited to have you guys on board. And today I want to just talk a little bit about, you've heard me say this before, the fine wine. Would you please bring up the slide? The Fine Wine and Firepit raffle.
Keep going, Christine.
Okay. So for $50, you guys have an opportunity to buy a raffle ticket, and the raffle ticket will give you a shot at $1,250 of fine wines that we have had donated by our board members for ORE and also for the board members for our club. So this is your chance. All you have to do is click on your chat button and say your name and how many $50 raffle tickets you would like. and it gives you a shot at having that cute little fire pit delivered to your home with 25 bottles of wine, and that includes Cabs and Chardonnays, Pinot Noirs, Bordeaux, Champagne. Somebody snuck a bottle of aged whiskey in there, so I think it's going to be a fine party. I hope I get invited. All you have to do is click on the chat box, guys. Next slide. All right, it's my pleasure to finally bring us to the point where we can talk about our 2020 Gala Auction. I know you all are aware we were going to have a sail away on a real yacht, and all of that now has moved to a gala fundraiser, which has gone virtual. So starting today at 1 o'clock, the online auction is available. All you have to do is click on this website. Yay! All right, so the play period, the days that you'll be able to bid go from May 14th to May 30th. All you have to do is go to the website, register, log in, start bidding. You have 24 hours a day. All items are available to view, bid, counterbid, and win. So along the way, during our 2-week period, we're going to have some time for some surprise announcements. You'll have some interesting things coming to you to email. Also, if you set up in your registration that you want the system to call you when your bid has been outbid so that you can rebid, you have a chance to put that parameter in as well. The payment is going to be through PayPal and Rotary Invoice. I want you to remember that when you go to the website, you can invite your friends to bid, because the more people that bid, the more opportunities there are to win. So all you have to do is think about who was going to be at your table on that yacht gala, and be sure that you give them introduction on how to play. For this, you can email them the information. The gala Zoom party is going to be on, go backwards please, on Saturday, May 30th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And I want you to know we have a special dress for this party. We are dressing fancy above the waist. And we will be having a contest for the best dressed person as well. We also will have live music. We'll have some special guests, visitors pop into our gala party. I encourage you all to be there. President Peter, of course, is going to announce who is a winner and who will be taking home those special items that we've been auctioning off. Next page. I just want to say thank you guys, and let you know that sometime today you will be receiving an email that'll give you an invitation to the events I've talked to just now. And so the auction will go live at 1 o'clock. We're all so excited. I want to again say thank you to all the people who have been sponsors, who have donated auction item gifts, for the committee member for the live auction event, and the committee members for the virtual auction event. This has been the most flexible group of people I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Thank you, everybody. Go for it.
Well, Christine, talking about flexibility, you have done a miraculous job planning a whole cruise party and then having that canceled and now moving this forward. I and the club profoundly thank you, as you know. All right, so the Rotary Club of Oakland actually has clubs in high schools. We sponsor Interact clubs in high schools. And today, Matthew Wong is here to tell us a little bit about a project that they are planning. And my gosh, I was so impressed. It ties completely in with what Mary was talking about and the thought for the day. So Matthew, tell us what you want to do.
Hello, Rotarians. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak today, especially you, President Peter. So I wanted to talk about the COVID-19 situation. So due to the ignorance surrounding COVID-19 outbreaks, the Asian community has been a victim of xenophobic remarks, especially anti-Chinese sentiments. And in order to uplift these communities, as well as highlight the exuberance of Chinatown, Area 1 interactors are participating in the Love Letters to Chinatown project, where the general community is able to submit love letters, poetry, works of art, where they will be displayed in San Francisco and Oakland Chinatown. So this project not only fosters solidarity among the communities, but also unifies the entire Bay Area. So Area 1 Interact is asking Oakland Rotarians for donations to match each submission in this effort. The donations that are made will go to United Way Bay Area COVID-19 Community Relief Fund, as well as the Interact community and international projects. So the community project is helping to destigmatize conversations regarding substance abuse and to help prevent drug addiction, whereas the international project focuses on building schools in Nicaragua for children in need. So we would like to accept any donations possible through bell ringing at this point. Thank you.
President Peter, I'd like to ring the bell to contribute to the Interact project. I think Love Letters to Chinatown is a great vehicle to contribute to COVID-19 relief, as well as the District Interact community and global projects. And I'd also like to ring the bell a second time, specifically to honor all Area 1 interactors that had their school year cut short. Among this group, you know, I'd like to especially recognize the seniors that are having their graduation ceremonies and parties cut short. You won't find a more academically minded or community minded group of high school students, and they deserve, you know, some recognition for you know what they're going to miss out on.
All right, Greg, thank you very much. Whoop, one bell ring. And two bell rings. And for those that don't know, Greg is the chair of our Interact committee and an advisor. And Greg, thank you very much for taking on that role and doing such a great job. Okay, so same thing. If you wish to support the interactors in this project, please feel free to write that support into your chat screen. And I too will ring the bell in support of the interactors. Right, on to our speaker. So we will have a Q&A session, and at the bottom of your screen is a Q&A button, and that's where we want you to click if you can, if you have a question, type it in, and we'll get back to it at the end. My theme this year has been adaptation to climate change, and I have invited Katie. Katie is an associate environmental scientist in the Resilient Landscapes program of the San Francisco Estuary Institute. She is from North Carolina and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in environmental science at North Carolina State University. And Katie, I am told that you were supported by your local Rotary Club for 4 years. And so I am excited to introduce you and have you tell us about how our investment is helping create lasting change across the globe and in our communities.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Peter. I am very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And like Peter said, I did receive a scholarship through Swansboro Rotary Club in Eastern North Carolina. So it feels extra special to me to be here connecting with you all out here. And I hope that you'll find my presentation interesting, focused on sea level rise adaptation. So I will share my screen now. All right. So today I'm going to be telling you a little bit about adaptation planning using nature's boundaries. And the project that I'm going to be focusing on has benefited from a number of people you can see listed here on the authorship. From the organization that I work called the San Francisco Estuary Institute, as well as Sfii, an urban policy think tank in Oakland and San Francisco. And so I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about where I work, the San Francisco Estuary Institute, and then I'm going to dive into adaptation planning using nature's boundaries. And I'm going to keep it high level because we only have 20 minutes, and I'll point you to some available tools and resources if you're interested in the topic. And I'm hoping to have 5 minutes at the end so we can talk through those questions and answers. So the San Francisco Estuary Institute, or SFEI, has been around for over 30 years, and we're a nonprofit that is really focused on science. We're located in Richmond, California, right by Costco, which has been a huge staple for many during this crazy crisis. So you've probably passed by our office if you've been to Costco lately. And we're really committed to conducting independent scientific assessments to improve the health of the waters of the San Francisco Bay and our wetlands and wildlife and our landscape in general. We mainly focus on projects in the San Francisco Bay and California Delta, but we have also done projects in Southern California and throughout the state. We're around 60 scientists and we're growing. And what we like to say that we do is really, we're the translators of science. We take really kind of complex, thick journal articles and boil them down into useful guidance that can then be used in implementation. So the focus of my talk today is on a report that we launched about a year ago called San Francisco Bay Shoreline Adaptation Atlas, working with nature to plan for sea level rise using operational landscape units. Now, the operational landscape units is probably a term you haven't heard before, and I'll unpack that in a few slides. But really what I'm hoping to discuss is getting at why nature-based adaptation is so important for our region. So what do I mean by nature-based adaptation? These are actions that harness biodiversity and ecosystem services to reduce vulnerability and build resilience to climate change. So I know we're in this really uncertain time right now with COVID-19, and the topic of sea level rise is similar, right? Like there's a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of stuff our region's headed for. But I'm hoping today will be a little bit more of a positive spin of what we can do about it using really beautiful systems that nature has perfected over a very long time span. And so these systems range from natural systems like eelgrass and oysters and mudflats and marshes to more hybrid systems where we can take engineered structures like a levee and pair it with a tidal marsh or other hybrid examples. And in this one on the right is an ecotone levee where you can place a marsh in front of a levee in some cases where it will work, and that sloped marsh will actually reduce the life of the levee, break up wave energy, while giving you all of the wonderful benefits of tidal marsh. There's also beaches in San Francisco Bay that are another example of nature-based adaptation. Historically, we had over 27 miles of beaches along our shoreline in the 1800s. Many of those have gone away with development, but many are still around, and even new novel beaches have been created for restoration and different management actions. And beaches can knock down waves and be a natural defense against sea level rise. They can protect our infrastructure like our roads, be an alternative to riprap, and also prevent further erosion along our tidal marshes. And there are so many benefits that nature can provide. There's a lot of studies coming out that looks at the lifetime costs of hardened infrastructure compared to more hybrid or natural solutions. And over time, these natural solutions typically cost less and are more adaptable to shocks in our system. And there are all these benefits that are brought about, like cleaner water, reducing our flood risk, providing food web and wildlife support, and creating beautiful spaces to recreate in and just be wonderful backdrops to improve our quality of life. So we all know that sea level rise is happening. And over time, as the projections continue to increase, we have less and less time to act. Those projections are creeping closer, and right now is the moment that we need to think about what to do about that. Adapting to sea level rise will require big changes though. So the question quickly becomes, what do we do about it? And how do we avoid leaving our children or our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren with a giant concrete wall separating them from the rest of the bay? How these changes collectively adapt the shoreline will determine the fate and health of the bay. So at SFEI, we really believe that a science-based framework is essential to identify effective adaptation strategies that are appropriate for their particular settings and that take advantage of natural processes. San Francisco Estuary is very urbanized. It's changed a lot. A lot of the historical tidal marsh that once was here in the 1800s has gone away. Now, we've done a lot of work to bring those marshes back, but we've developed in certain areas all the way to the edge of the bay, and in some cases out into the bay on fill. So the bay is very heterogeneous and dynamic. In some areas, like in Marin County, we have steep headlands that jut into deep water where we have highways or railroads right on the edge. In other areas, like in this photo of Highway 37, we have broad tidal marshes that have highways in between, and there's just so much more space out here. It's much less developed. And we have agriculture that used to be tidal marsh that's kind of interwoven with the tidal marsh we have now. And in other areas like Foster City, we've put housing and commercial developments out into the bay on what used to be tidal marsh. And then most iconically, downtown San Francisco, we have very dense developments. That's arguably the hub of our financial district in the region, and it is built out into deep water. So it's very, very vulnerable. So it's pretty intuitive that there's no one size fits all approach to adapting to sea level rise, especially when you're talking about natural systems. You can't shove a tidal marsh in a deep channel. It just doesn't work like that. And when you look at a map of our traditional jurisdictions or the social boundaries we've constructed, it's very complicated. We have 9 counties, 101 cities, multiple special districts, and frontline communities in really low-lying areas that are going to be the hardest hit with sea level rise. So you can imagine sea level rise won't stop at our city boundaries. And if each of those jurisdictions went after adaptation planning alone, we'd have a piecemeal approach that doesn't add up to a comprehensive solution. So what we've done in this project and in general in thinking about sea level rise adaptation, we want to advocate for thinking about the natural processes that have really influenced how our landscape functions and how it exists today and will exist in the future. And what I mean by that is we kind of start really broad and high level, looking at the large processes happening on our shoreline. So that's watershed processes. We have over 40% of California draining right here into San Francisco Estuary. It's a lot of water, a lot of nutrients, a lot of just stuff coming down from our watersheds entering the bay. We also have our ocean processes to consider, the tides, the waves, the salinity coming in, and it mixes here into what we think of as estuarine processes that shape the tidal marshes, shape our shoreline edge. But often projects at the small scale can't think about those processes. So we've come up with a framework to propose in thinking through adaptation planning. And for this presentation, I'm boiling it down into 3 steps. First, plan using nature's boundaries instead of those traditional ones that I showed you. Second, identify adaptation measures that could work well in a given place and use nature as much as possible. And third, use this framework when bringing stakeholders together to understand what is possible and also take into account the shared values that any communities or governments and so forth have collectively. So in this report, we have broken up the bay into 30 units that we call operational landscape units. And the shorthand for this is really nature's boundaries. And these units we define as areas with shared geophysical and land use characteristics suited for a particular suite of nature-based measures. Now, the thing about these boundaries in white on this map, they respond to, there was a number of data layers that we looked at to make these boundaries. And this was kind of a 3-year process in working with technical advisors and others, but it really responds to geology, topography, bathymetry, watersheds, tidal sheds, all of those processes boiling down into a unit on the landscape. And we think that the scale is kind of the sweet spot in terms of bringing people together and thinking about adaptation planning. OLUs are bigger than a project, bigger than a city, but smaller than a county. So again, kind of hitting that sweet spot in not too big, but also not too small and narrow. the next step is identifying adaptation measures that could work well in a given place. And this is what our report really gets to the heart of. We have mapped 9 nature-based measures, and these range from, on the left here in this list, from subtidal measures like reefs and eelgrass and beaches, to intertidal measures like tidal marsh, polder management. Polder is kind of a English word that just means subsided areas that I kind of think of as big holes in the ground that would be filled with waters if we didn't have dikes and levees kind of protecting those areas. We've also mapped migration space, area for open, undeveloped areas around the edge of the bay that's at the right elevations for marsh to migrate upslope over time as sea level rises, since sea level kind of poses a threat to our marshes potentially drowning if they don't have enough sediment to keep pace. And we've looked at creek connections. Where is it possible to reconnect our creeks to get all of that great stuff coming off of the watershed into feeding our baylands to be more resilient? And then green stormwater infrastructure is another big thing where we can slow and spread water before it floods our communities. But this was less of a focus because it's a little harder to map at such a broad scale. And we also worked with Sfii, that urban policy think tank that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, to come up with regulatory, financial, and policy tools that are appropriate in each one of these OLUs. And just like you can imagine in some areas like downtown San Francisco, where you can't really put a tidal marsh there, but you might be able to in Napa, where there's just a lot more, or Napa Sonoma, where in the North Bay, where there's much more room, regulatory, financial, and policy tools are similar. You would do something very different in an area that's largely undeveloped with a lot less jobs versus really high density jobs and so forth. But before I get into the actual measures and where they fall in the landscape and are possible, we like to start with this thought exercise, where you have to first ask yourself, what is the problem and what is causing the problem before you can pinpoint the solution? So in this example, this is a typical bay levee in Hayward. And on a sunny day, it looks fine. There's the bay trail running through. But during a big storm event, waves reach the levee, knock into it, and overtop. So the problem here is large waves. And here in downtown Martinez, the problem is still flooding, but it's a very different cause. The flooding is caused by a big storm event coming through, the local creek filling up too quickly, topping its banks, and spilling into the downtown. So the cause here is really fluvial flooding. And in a third example, in Alameda, we have sunny day flooding, where it's neither big storm events and waves, and it's also not a creek overtopping its banks. It's just a really high tide that will just continue to increase with sea level rise. So in this exercise, it's really important to think about the problem, think about the cause, and then we can think through what are the nature-based measures that can potentially alleviate that problem. And in that first example of the Hayward levee, we could break up those large waves by putting in a marsh or putting in a beach or putting in a levee that's paired with a marsh if it works in that place. So in this report, we go through all these different specs of what do you have to consider and what needs to be possible, or what processes need to be in place in order for this ecological measure to work. And it kind of takes on a similar theme as those hardened structures, but the key here is, we have a lot of engineering documents and a lot of knowledge that exists around these hardened approaches. A lot less knowledge exists on these more nature-based structures because they're changing, right? They're adaptable, they're dynamic. And we're really lucky to be in the Bay Area where there's a lot of people researching this specific topic and putting case studies in the ground to test what works where. So we've done a first cut at compiling landscape considerations and process guidelines in addition to ecosystem functions and coastal risks managed, highlighting ecosystem services, and also going through kind of the policy considerations. So a really quick boiled down synthesis of what do you need to consider if you're thinking through one of these measures. So we mapped 7 at the OLU scale of these measures. And what this boils down to is a toolkit. It's a menu of options. You can turn to an OLU. If you wanted to look at where you live, you could find your OLU. You could turn to the page in the report where we have kind of shown on a map all of the measures on top of one another. And you can see what is physically possible based on elevation, based on how developed the shoreline is. And in this example, in southern San Francisco and Daly City area, you can do more subtidal measures because it is a very built out shoreline. So things like beaches, eelgrass, oysters, polder management. Then on the dry side, in terms of policy, elevating roadways could be a really good option, or flood-proofing buildings, things like that. In the second example, in the North Bay, the Napa-Sonoma OLU, a lot of the OLU names are based on creeks or based on natural features. So some of them aren't as intuitive if you aren't familiar with these different rivers and creeks and stuff. But in Napa-Sonoma, we have a lot more space here. There's a lot of opportunity in the green on the map for marsh restoration. There's also a lot of deeply subsided areas that are either full of water now or would be if the levees were to break and fail in the future. And there's a lot of opportunity for protecting open space at the edge of the bay for our marshes to migrate upslope into, and ample room to reconnect our creeks. And then on the policy side, we could acquire migration space, we could think about easements and buyouts, and we could also think about elevating roadways like Highway 37. And another part of this is really thinking through how we can combine these measures into a pathway. So not just one measure won't alleviate all the issues with future sea level rise and flooding. But if we think about it in combination and also think about it in combination with gray infrastructure, we might be able to get at some really useful solutions that have so many co-benefits for us in the future. So getting near the end, I just wanted to give you a link of where you can download the report. And we also have a web map where you can turn on and off these layers, zoom in to any area you're interested in. And all of our information is totally public. So I encourage you to check it out and email me if you have any questions. And so the report is at sfei.org/adaptation projects. And the web map is resilienceatlas.sfei.org. And finally, just a couple of slides. The third big step is using this approach and this framework to bring stakeholders together to envision a resilient future. And we've piloted this approach of using OLUs and thinking through nature-based solutions with Marin County, with San Mateo County. We're currently in the process of working with the town of Corte Madera. And we're really hopeful that, you know, this will be a useful tool, a useful approach to bring people together. And in some of our initial interactions with these workshops in San Mateo County, for example, it was really cool to see all the different cities in the room, the counties, people from the airport, you know, just all the different stakeholders that it's a lot easier to identify when you have a map with discrete boundaries. And we're continuously trying to improve our science and fill our data gaps. We're currently working on another phase to this project, and we're hopeful that, you know, this work will contribute to communities working across the Bay to apply and translate this work and build more resilient systems and resilient communities. So with that, I will end, and I hope we have a few minutes for questions. Thank you.
Katie, that was perfect. 19 minutes. I'm so proud of you. So if you could unshare your screen, please, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
And so I'm going to start with the first question, and that is 50 years from now, which when you're 72 seems like a long time, but it actually also goes really, really fast. What is the anticipated sea level rise between now and 50 years from now?
So it depends on the projection you're looking at. So we have a lot of great data. I would say the best resource for the state of California is the Ocean Protection Councils. They have guidance, and I believe there's a state document that outlines those different projections. So we have projections that show kind of the lower end of things. It's hard for me without the graphs in front of me to say exactly, but you know, as bookend scenarios, we could think of mid-century being maybe like 2 feet of sea level rise might be more on the risk aversion end, so the higher projection. But we also have these projections that if all of the ice sheets melt and, you know, kind of these catastrophic scenarios, if we continue to emit carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, we could be on a much quicker trajectory. And so the upper end of what we're seeing by end of century as a potential kind of the most catastrophic right now is 5 meters of sea level rise. That's a lot of sea level rise. But again, that's kind of the bookend catastrophic 2100. So it's hard to say. It's more like you can say, here's a projection in terms of emissions, and then here's your risk of where you're comfortable looking in terms of the percentage of likelihood of that happening. So it's complicated, I guess. But, you know, for the work we do, we've been using 2 feet by 2050 and like 6 or 7 feet by 2100 as kind of risk averse projections.
Holy smokes. Cal Mann is asking a question that wonders a bit about the relationship between earthquake vulnerability and sea level rise. He asks, do you have a map overlay showing areas that are both earthquake vulnerable and sea level rise vulnerable?
I'm sure that that map exists. I have personally made maps that show where the major fault lines are and sea level rise. And another big thing that you need to think about with, and it's a really great question, with tectonic activity, you know, you might have a lowering of the land surface, and then that could add on additional relative sea level rise, if that makes sense. We see lowering in areas that are subsided. There was a recent paper on that. I'm forgetting the name of the authors, but I think maybe a year ago they came out with a subsidence study. But I think the you know, idea of layering on all of these big risks is really important, because what if we do have an earthquake that knocks out levees, or what if we do have a big fire that coincides with an earthquake? You know, it's just like we are so vulnerable to so many different shocks to our system. And there is a lot of data. If you go on that resilienceatlas.sfei.org link, you can turn on and off our sea level rise layers. And I believe there's a fault line layer, but if not, if you reach out to me, I can point you to where you can look at that data.
All right, thank you. Greg Annis asks, how does submerged vegetation help with the problem of rising water? I've heard of agencies planting submerged kelp to help ocean bay water, but how does submerged vegetation help control water levels?
Yes, it's a great question. And so if you look at the report, we have a section on that specifically, but just kind of to give you an idea of what it can do, it can slow down the movement of water. So it adds more resistance under the water surface by having that vegetation. It also adds to kind of the primary productivity and the stuff that's helping all the organisms that sustain the tidal marsh. All of these systems are interconnected, right? Like tidal marsh, tidal flat, oysters, eelgrass. By having one, it promotes primary productivity and supports the food web that then also supports the health of our tidal marsh, for example. And it can also help to capture sediment, which is a really important aspect of a lot of these systems as well. So, you know, it's not like you put eelgrass in and all your problems are gone. It's more like a piece of the puzzle that helps.
Thank you. Greg Knight, here in Northern Cal, does our coastline tend to rise or subside due to tectonic activity?
I think it depends. I am not the best person to ask about that. I would point to that paper that was, look, I think in the hills, we might be seeing some slight rise, but in the baylands, there might be some lowering, but that also could be from that local subsidence. So I'm not exactly sure, but there is a lot of research on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Katie, thank you very much for your presentation. At in Rotary International, we have a goal to eradicate polio worldwide. We have been working on this since 1987, and we are this close. And so in your honor, we are making a donation to end polio now, so that we and you can contribute a bit more to the eradication of the scourge of polio. It will be the second disease in the history of man that has been eradicated. So thank you very much for your presentation. I see a big smile. You're still muted. I'm going to unmute you. Sorry about that. We are still waiting. Well, while we're waiting for Mary, next week we're having a little bit of a special meeting. I have invited the Rotary Club of Truckee to join us. Now, the Rotary Club of Truckee, unfortunately, now sports former member John Gressley and will be sporting a member, Gudrun Dibdahl, but they are interested in us working a bit together on some international projects. And so we will have a joint meeting. And because of that, the speaker is Fiona Ma. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, right, Mary? Sorry about that. So, and secondly, at that special meeting, the second half of the meeting will be our business part. And we're going to try the breakout rooms so that we can recreate a bit of the personal contact that eating at a dining table with 6 or 8 other people can allow a more personal approach. So we will be using a different meeting ID next week, but we are going to have breakout sessions. So I'm hoping that that will attract people to come and to get that experience with small tables. So Mary, are you now ready?
Yes. Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay. Hi. So next week, you get to meet California top banker for economic and housing developments, financing healthcare and educational facilities. This is the person who first identified the cannabis industry as the largest underground economy. Our state treasurer, Fiona Ma, will be our next week's speaker. Tune in next week to find out how she's going to handle a huge pending state budget deficit.
All right, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it. Pat Williams, you are going to make a report on all of those chat messages that I haven't been able to keep track of.
Okay, Peter. Well, the bell was ringing a lot today. First of all, we had Fred Morse, who rang the bell for Janice Brickley. We had, yes, ring the bell. We had bell ringers for Lorna. We had Seth Butner. We had Daniel Chang, President Peter, Dudley Thompson, Stephanie Kazenza, Joe Garalka, Iris Brody Lopez, and Gary Flaxman. We had a bell ringer for the Interactors from Greg Annis. And then we had also had bell ringers for the Interactors project, Greg Annis, Daniel Chang, Georgia Richardson, Keith Uriarty, Joe Garalka, myself, Mary Jiang, and Christine Watson. We also had Giovanna Tanzio, who did 3 memorial bell ringers for Jean Zahas. And we had one member, Julie Fox, who bought a ticket for the wine raffle. I want to let everybody know that if you would like to buy tickets for the wine raffle that Christine told us about, you can just drop me a note or give me a call. I'm happy to sell you those $50 wine tickets. Right now, we've sold 85. They are unlimited though, so let me know. Thanks, President Peter.
Thank you, Pat. And so with that brings this meeting to a close. I hope you will join us next week for that joint meeting with Truckee and our breakout rooms where you can actually sit down around a virtual table with 6 or 8 other people. Thank you so much to all who participated. Thank you as always to those who donated and who make possible that amazing $200,000 donation to multiple projects, both here locally and around the world. This meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland is adjourned.